So we're starting with Nick Fahey. It's very nice to have you here on IDS. So welcome. How are you? And yeah, how is it to be here in
Yeah, it's
Cologne?
great to be here. It's fantastic. We were here 4 years ago. Then obviously COVID hit. So great to be out and about and seeing lots of friends and colleagues from around the world.
That sounds very good, Nicholas. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your background. How and when did you decide to become a dentist?
Oh, that's a good question. So I didn't really initially want to be a dentist. I was I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then my girlfriend at the time didn't want to go to where veterinary is done in New Zealand, so I had to have a rethink. And my dad suggested I should become a dentist, so that's how that happened. And then I even remember on my first day at dental school in New Zealand, in Otago, I turned up and I still wasn't sure I'd made the right decision. And then about 3 people I knew were in the class, including probably my oldest friend, like not my best friend, but the person I've known all my life from the sandpit. And when I looked up and saw him sitting in the back row, I knew I was going to have a good time.
Wow, so you never regret your decision?
No, I still didn't even realize if I was going to be a dentist for when I graduated. I wanted to go surfing. Hard to believe looking at the size of me now, but I used to love surfing. And I wanted to go surfing for 6 months. So I was a bit reluctant getting into dentistry from the get-go. But I came home one day and my mum had accepted a job, and I agreed to go and help a mate out in Wairau in New Zealand. And one thing led to another, and after about, I reckon, 3 or 4 weeks, I was hooked on dentistry. So yeah, no regrets at all. In fact, I think dentistry, even though it's a hard career, it is such a rewarding career. And with technology and the things available to us, it's an incredibly interesting career option. It's good because you can use your hands. So like, it's very scientific and it's technical and it's academic, but at the same time, there's lots of hands-on. It's patient-focused. It's really got almost everything I would want in a career pathway.
Wow, thanks for sharing. And maybe you can talk a little bit about your daily life. How does a typical day look in dentistry, in your practice?
So a typical day for me would be I start the morning with my team and we run through what we call a huddle. So the huddle is an essential part of me making sure that, and this is why I like guided surgery, I love to be organised. So we go through the day beforehand and we identify any contact that needs to be made with the previous patients, like they might need to be rung up to check that they're all right, and if they don't need to be checked on to see if they're all right, we need to make sure they're following the instructions after the surgery. Obviously they might have some concerns, so that's a chance for us to touch base with them again, and we also would reflect on any things that had happened during the day and if there were opportunities to improve. Likewise, also touch on things that went really well. So that's the first part of our meeting. Then we look at the day. So when I say we, this is something I've coined from my wife. We like the term, it's called pre-mortem. So we're always trying to identify issues before they arise. So we run through the day. So we might look at the patients, because we might have tricky treatments or difficult treatments. So we want to cover all of the elements that we might be worried about there. Make sure we've got our guided surgery plans and the lab works back, and make sure that we don't run into any problems. But at the same time, we might have difficult patients. Sometimes the treatment's not necessarily difficult, but a patient might have a lot of needs, so they may not want to have a certain type of local anesthetic. So we make sure that we just don't run into these problems. That if you manage them at source, it's so much easier than dealing with problems as you go. So we're not trying to treat people on the fly. We're trying to bring a very well-planned, smooth, calm experience for our patients. And then, of course, the next thing we do is we look at the next day, and maybe the rest of the week, and that would be so we could make sure that the laboratory was happy that they had all the information for providing the lab work. Obviously, we check that the lab work's available, and then obviously follow up patients, take money, etc. So we'd have a very, very good meeting in the morning. After that, I normally do surgeries in the morning, so like I'll then have my therapist and that. We use a lot of sedation, so they'll go down and sedate the patient. We will have discussed all of this in the huddle, and then I'll go down. Now I'm getting old, I get lazy, so I'll go down. Everybody will be anaesthetized and the lines will be in, and then I just have to do the surgery, and then I finish that, come upstairs, write my notes, and then in the afternoon I tend to do my consults in my restorative phase of treatment. I like doing it that way because in the morning, if we overrun, we just can overrun into lunchtime, and that's so we don't ruin our afternoon. And then also it gives the decontamination team plenty of time to turn around on the instruments for the next day. And then in the afternoon, I generally find restorative treatment pretty methodical and straightforward. Obviously there are times when it's a little bit trickier with some patients than others. But yeah, so I'm doing most of my, if you like, serious stuff in the morning, and then doing the stuff I'm most relaxed doing in the afternoon. So unfortunately, before I leave, I always try and clear my desk, and that's something I got from my dad. And by that I mean finish all my paperwork, get everything ready for the next day, so I don't have to take my work home with me.
That's a good point. Just to start fresh in the next day, I think that made it a
I think
lot
it's
easier.
essential.
Yeah, very good. So, guided surgery, that's the title of your book. So maybe you can tell us some highlights, some key facts about your book.
So guided surgery is the big title, but the little title is making implant placement simpler. And I because I'm old, I've come from the background in the UK when I started implant dentistry. So I did my initial training in New Zealand. Then I came over to the UK, I thought for just a year, but then I'm still there now, so that's 30 years ago. So I decided I was doing a few implants. I was using an oral surgeon, and dear chap that he was, he certainly wasn't putting the implants in the right place all the time. So I thought, well, if he's going to do a bad job of placing the implants, I could probably do a bad job of placing the implants. So I went off and did a prosthodontic degree, but did a lot of surgery as part of it. And I'd done a lot of surgery in New Zealand before I came to the UK. So the logical thing for me was that we were taking three-dimensional x-rays, so scan auras and CBCTs, or in those days it was even CT scans. And if we were going to use this information, which I'm a big believer in, if you have information, you should use it. You can't just justify taking an x-ray just to see what the volume is. You need to get the maximum use out of that radiographic diagnostic. So guided surgery then allowed us to plan the implants and deliver the implants using a guide. Now initially, and I go into this a little bit in the book, there was a few issues with it, and that's because we didn't know the classic cliche, we didn't know what we didn't know. And one of the reasons that this is hopefully a book for everybody, not just people who are getting into guided surgery, is this gives you effectively 20 years of my knowledge, or possibly even longer now, of guided surgery, so you don't need to make the mistakes that I made. And when I say mistakes, it's been an evolution rather than a revolution. And now we're in a situation where with guided surgery you can predictably place your implants, get them in a better place, I think saving time, which obviously saves cost, for a better outcome for the patient. And in an increasingly litigious world, you can then demonstrate that you've gone through a full process, a systematic process to deliver this. Because I'm lucky, I started my career in implant dentistry when the miracle was just osseointegration. People were just happy not to wear a denture and have something that was screwed in. nowadays, especially in the UK, if you're going to do implant dentistry, then you need to do it, and you want to get started in it. Your results need to be, your patient outcomes need to be very similar to mine. So you're not going to be given the opportunity to grow your skills slowly. You need to get there straight away. And I can't see a better way for making implant placement simpler than using guided surgery, and that's why I wrote the book.
So interesting. You mentioned that this book should be for everybody, but maybe you can tell us what audience, specific audience you want to reach with your book.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. I really wrote the book. It's not a conventional textbook. It's more like a handbook. And the reason it's written like a handbook is that I want people to be able to dip into it, at various times. There's chapters on CT scanning, so you might change your CT scanner, and then you might come back to the book and you might look at it. You might change planning software, and so you might come back to the book and have a look at what we say about different planning softwares. So the idea is that you would have three constituents who would read the book. So you could start off with no knowledge of guided surgery, and you could read the book and obviously go on some courses, get some mentoring, which we provide as well. And that will then put you in the position where you can do guided surgery predictably, safely, and get the results and the outcomes for the patients that we would expect. The next constituent would be the person who's already placing implants but then wants to move into guided surgery. And there's two types of, if you like, implant dentists, I believe. There's young implant dentists, and that doesn't mean you have to be young. It could mean that you're just young to implant dentistry. And then you've got people who've been placing implants for quite a long time who then want to find out about guided surgery. So you can be a young dentist, a young implant dentist in your career. You've placed a few implants, and you have identified things like, sometimes you don't get the placement exactly right, or sometimes you get your lab work back and you think, oh, I'd hope this could have been a bit better. And you know that there's a route to do this, and you think that might be guided surgery, which it is, and that's the avenue for those people to go. The last constituent of people that the book is aimed at is that there is quite a lot of, I'm going to almost contradict myself by saying there is some quite heavy conceptual ideas in the book, and those are more aimed at people who are advanced users, people already who are doing a lot of guided surgery, and this would be what I call the gold or the gems, and this is the hard fought stuff that I've worked out over 20 odd years of placing implants using guided surgery and now surgical navigation. And obviously if you're a really advanced surgeon, it's an easy reading book, so you should just be able to motor through it. One guy contacted me through the email address in the book and just said I read it in 24 hours. So it's not hard reading. It's not very didactic. It's a handbook, and he just said, he knew most of it, but he just picked up lots of tips and lots of bits and pieces around the book. And probably, if I may, one of the things is the initial title that I thought about when I started doing this book was I wanted to call it Speaking About Guided Surgery, and by that I'm quite dyslexic. I talk a little bit about that in the book. So the book was written using Dragon dictation software. So pretty much the book was spoken. So that was what I meant by it, sort of a little in-joke speaking about guided surgery. But the reality is that when I say I'm speaking about it, we're speaking about conversations that you could have. So conversations you might have if you want to buy equipment, conversations you might have with your team about guided surgery, conversations you could have with manufacturers and companies of like CT scanners if you want to buy those, questions you might ask. So there is an absolute wealth of knowledge in the book for beginners to experts.
So you mentioned three different kinds of target group. So the second one, the youngs, you mentioned. Maybe you can give a little advice for the students or people considering a career in dentistry.
Yeah, well, dentistry's been very kind to me. My wife's a dentist, so some people say the classic joke, a boring couple, but dentistry's been very, very kind to us. When I did dentistry, a lot of the people in my class actually were kids of dentists, so obviously they thought it was a good idea. Alas, none of my children have decided to go into the family business. My son's more interested in sport, and my daughter's more interested in art. If you're a young dentist and you're looking at dentistry as a career, I think it's important that you like people. If you like people and you like technology and you like the sort of art side of it, so maybe that's where my daughter gets it from, because it is quite artistic what we do, and you need to have an eye for art, then it's a great profession, great network of people. You come to a show like this and just see the amazing things that are happening in dentistry as well. So it's a crazy space, and I don't think we'll be replaced by robots for a few years yet.
Thank you so much. Finally, maybe there's something you would share with people to know about dentistry. Something, maybe what is a secret?
I think my secret to dentistry, I think there's a number of them, but I would say the biggest thing I always think is you should always practice your dentistry like you have somebody looking over your shoulder. So at the end of the day, if you keep that in your mind, if you wouldn't be prepared to do something that if your professor wasn't looking over your shoulder, you shouldn't do that in another patient, in a patient's mouth. So that's something I think's a good stead. And if I may be allowed another one, the classic mother, father, brother, sister rule also comes into play. So if you wouldn't be happy doing the treatment on a family member, then you should really be considering whether this is the right thing to be done on one of your patients.
Nick, thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the best.
It's been a pleasure. Have a good IDS.
Thank you.